So, Lynn, I think we are live now on Facebook. We may have been live before. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to our second lunchtime learning session. And today we have LYN ROSEAMAN, who is the author of a wonderful book called Now You're Talking. And Lynn is going to talk to us about standout speaking online. So Lynn, over to you, and I'm really looking forward to listening to this, and I will feed you any questions that come in the comments.
Thanks, Lucy. 20 years ago, I packed my bag, bought myself a one-way ticket to Cyprus, got on a plane and set off on the adventure of a lifetime. Boy, was that a good decision. Or consider this. Hello, everyone. My name's LYN ROSEAMAN. I'm a public speaking coach, founder of Now You're Talking, and author of a book of the same name. Which one got you most curious? Which of those introductions had you leaning in, had you wondering, what's she talking about? Where's this going? Maybe I'll hang around a little bit longer and have a listen. You see, as speakers, especially speakers online, we are wading through this sea of sameness, this noisy atmosphere where everyone has a voice, everyone has a platform, everyone has something to say. And it becomes harder and harder and harder to make ourselves heard, to encourage people that they might want to listen to us. How do we stand in the sea of sameness? How do we connect with an audience and have them want to stay with us and listen to what we have to say? And how do we give them something that they can take away, that they can remember? How do we do all these things? Because they are absolutely essential if we're really going to cut it online. You know what it's like. You sit there all day, back-to-back Zoom meetings, and at the end of it, can you remember a single thing that you've heard? And this is what we're up against. And we need to deal with it. We need to take things to a whole new level if we're going to really impact people. And I think that what we need to be doing is 3 key areas where we can make a difference. First off is confidence and bringing confident energy to all our talks. The next thing is connection. How do you create a connection with your audience? How do you engage with them so that they want to stay with you and hear what you have to say? And how do you deliver a message that changes hearts and minds, something that gives value to people, something that's really relevant to the here and now? Because so many of these things, when they go adrift, leave you plonked firmly in that sea of sameness and and you become completely forgettable. And that's not what we want, is it? So online is a fantastic opportunity for us to remain visible, share our message, talk to people, stay in touch. It has so many things to commend it when we do it right. So let's start by having a look at this whole idea of confident energy. I mean, why should we care about energy? Why should we care about confidence? The important thing, first off, is that if I'm sitting here, oh my God, I'm so scared and it's also worrying and I don't know if I can do this. How do you feel? Are you sort of slightly worried about whether I'm going to make it through, whether or not you're about to waste the next 30 minutes of your life? Is it all a bit angst making, isn't it? But if I sit here and I'm cool, calm, assured, then you can relax and you can focus on what it is that I share with you. So that's an important thing. But also, if I'm bringing a nice, confident energy to the screen, then it sort of pops out of that seedness again. It helps to make me stand out. So what are the things that I can do in terms of really generating confident energy? Well, think about where you are. Yes, you're talking, but you're not in a coffee shop and you're not on a giant stage. You're on the small screen. This is your close-up, and everyone has a front row seat. So you want to look good, don't you? You don't want to get up in front of all these people looking a mess. So to start with, think about your setting. The camera and the mic, they don't miss a trick. So what can the camera see? Can it see your washing drying in the corner? Can it see a big pile of toys over here somewhere? What can your camera see? And is it what you want them to see? I'm a big fan of the clean wall because there's no distraction. So people are stuck with me. That's it. There's nothing else for them to get engaged with. If you're going to have a background, try and make it something relevant, so that's not distracting, but that actually supports you. It's almost like a slide, isn't it? So something that supports you. And in terms of the microphone, perhaps ask everyone to go out. I had a client the other day who said to me, I've asked my husband to take, and the dog's gone. And so there'll be no barking. There'll be no children suddenly charging into the room. So as much as you can, and I know it's not always practical, but are there things you can do to make sure that you have a nice quiet setting so that the only things that are heard are what you want to be heard? What about you? Are you looking your best? And there's a number of things in play here. First off, where is your camera and what's happening? Because if you've got the light in front of the camera, you will probably be plunged into shadow. So to have a nice clean image is behind the camera. Make sure the camera's round about your eye level. And again, make sure what it's picking up is a nice, clean background. Also, when you think about the camera, think about lighting plunged eyes. Can you see my eyes? This is how we show trust to each other, isn't it? If my eyes were obliterated because I'm wearing glasses and they're obliterated by bright light dazzling coming in, then it's a distraction. So check all these things in advance. It's a bit of a pain, I grant you, but it pays off. And then what about you? Block color works very well. Again, it's not distracting. It looks professional. It looks strong. So a nice strong, I'm here in really strong red, but you know, your colors of choice, obviously, but it's more professional looking than a lot of pattern. So be careful with what you choose to wear. And also with the camera angle, you don't want it below you, nice double chins hanging all over the place. Try and get it at the right angle so you actually look good. And then you will feel confident, and that confidence will go into the room. So anything you can do in that front to make everything look the part, and just double check before you hit the join meeting. You always get a screen option. Just have a quick check to make sure that you're looking as good as you'd love to. In confidence, again, check the tech. I know you can only do so much, and I know that no matter how much you do, it can still go wrong. It's a bit like working with children and animals, isn't it? If something does go wrong, just stay calm. I'm always impressed by technical people. They seem to have a calm about them. They tell you what the problem is, they fix it, and on you go. Lovely. If you've got a big meeting going on and you can have someone else as Zoom master or the tech specialist to look after things for you, so much the better. And again, with the internet connection, if you are broadcasting in from try to make sure that as few devices as possible are tapping into that same Wi-Fi while you're on your call, because that will help prevent buffering. So that's the tech. And then you really need to just ooze confident energy. Just ooze it. Isn't that a lovely word? Start, particularly, this is culturally specific, but in the West it works fine. A big, confident, authentic smile is a great way to just send that confidence into the room. It's hard to smile when we're terrified or really nervous. So the smile says a lot in terms of confidence. Adopt a nice, open and stable posture, because that will help you to look and feel relaxed and assured, which is great for you and great for your audience. Dial down the movement. Again, as we said, it's the small screen, it's the close-up, it's the front row seat. You don't need great big sweeping gestures. And if you do, they can be sort of a bit overwhelming. So dial them down, keep them a bit more gentle. Or they can be so big, they disappear off the screen, which isn't very helpful. So again, bring them in small. Eye contact. I think this must be the hardest thing to do on Zoom and Teams and all these video platforms, because to make eye contact, you need to look into the lens of the camera, which is never where the eyes are. So if I look now at the audience, into their eyes, am I looking down? Does it look as if I'm down? Whereas if I look into the camera, I should be making eye contact with you. And it's so hard to do because all our inclination is to look at the eyes of the people on the screen, isn't it? But you can't, it doesn't make for good eye contact. It makes it look slightly shifty. You're just a bit scared and you can't look people in the eye. So I find that if you struggle with this and the technology being in the wrong place in this particular instance, if you put a little picture of somebody you know next to the camera lens and then talk to them. And not only will that help to really give you good eye contact, but it will also help feel like a nice conversation that's really flowing, that you're actually talking to another human being. You're not just talking to a piece of plastic stuck on your computer. So that I find a useful tip in terms of eye contact, because eye contact is so important in creating that sense of connection and creating trust with your audience. And finally, in terms of confidence, I would urge you to breathe. And I know everyone says this, but breathe well. It's if you can sort of relax the upper body, you know, maybe do some of the things that you would do to warm up before you do that vigorous gym workout. It opens up the upper body, and that's where all the voice equipment is. So if you're nice and relaxed on top, your voice, all the equipment that's going to help you to have a nice, rich and stable voice will come through, and you won't hear that sort of slight nervousness that the microphone might pick. So doing all those little things around the body language will really help to center you and to give a nice strong energy into the room. If we move on to look at connection, when you think, cast your time back, cast your minds back to those days in big conference venues, and there would be a massive queue of people lining up after a talk to carry on the conversation and to hear more to say, because you've emotionally connected with them. It's like Carl W. Booner says, they forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that is the emotional connection. How do you know if you've made it online? I mean, it's really difficult, isn't it? It's all, there's no warmth, there's no people around. Well, check the chat. Is it filling up with questions? That's a connection. Is it, are you using the signal perhaps on Zoom where a hand goes up and says, I want to say something? That's a connection. So start to look at what are the ways that people might be engaging and connecting with you, and what's their body language doing on screen at the same time, because all these things are starting to help show that you've created that connection. But without an emotional connection, think of it, you might as well be talking to yourself. And there's not too much point in that, is there? Unless you're just running through your speech in advance. So I think connection online is so important, and particularly so because it's very easy for people to disconnect, to break away from you. You can't see what they're doing. You can't see if they're suddenly fiddling around with their phone and all the other things that they might struggle to do in a room because they'll be seen doing it. But online, it's very easy So if you lose people or you can't get them with you in the first place, then you're missed it the whole way through. So that connection is really, really important. So how do we connect? Well, first off, remember, this is all about your audience. It's not about you. It's about the audience. The audience is first, last, and everything. You sit in an audience and you're looking at a speaker on the stage. What's going through your mind? I know for me, it's sort of, what are you going to talk to me about? What are you going to give me that's new, that's interesting, that's of value to me? In short, what's in it for me? And we all have that sort of sense, don't we? We've given up the time to be there. We've maybe even paid to be there. We want something in exchange. So as a speaker, it's your responsibility to answer that question as quickly as possible, because we really have short attention spans and we're not hanging around for very long. So as fast as you can get that message out there and give people a reason to stay, then so much the better. And that means knowing your audience. You can't do that if you don't know who they are. And when I say know your audience, I don't mean name and job title, but who are they? What makes them tick? How do they speak? Who do they know? What do they know? What do they want to know? There are so many questions that you can find answers to that will help you craft your speech in a way that's completely relevant to your audience. So that initial work needs to be done to really take a talk into the right place. Secondly, think about the language you're using. First, it needs to be conversational in style. It needs to have an energy and a pace, but it also needs to have nice variety and richness to help us all keep engaged. And in the English language in particular, we have the beautiful device of you. You carries so much power because it's a singular word, but it's also a plural word. So in the plural, it's all inclusive. I'm bringing everyone in, but in the singular, I'm having a one-to-one conversation with you. How lovely is that? To this meeting, and we're having a one-to-one. Fabulous. It's so it's a very powerful word to use as much as possible when you're talking to your audience. Or we, our, us. These words, again, it's that sense of inclusivity. We're all in this together, and they're very, very powerful. And if you want to see that in action, I think Barack Obama, I mean, masterful speaker at the best of times, but in his 2012 election victory speech, he used the word I 36 times. He used you or your 57 times, 55 times, and we, the word I 36 times. It's playing back at me. Used you or your. It's playing back at me. 9, and he used the word we, you, your 97 times. So that speech is very well worth a look if you want to just see how the difference between I, you, and we. And it makes the point again, I think, that I is just not the right word to be using. When you're speaking, it's not about you as a speaker, it's about the audience, it's about you or all of us together. And the third thing in terms of connection is stories. Stories are the #1 powerful thing to be using when you're online. They connect. We're hardwired to connect with stories. They go all the way back to the caveman days when they were how we traded information. They were how we stayed safe together. They were how we learned from each other. So stories are everything, and they work so powerfully for us. So always be a story, but do make sure that those stories are relevant and relatable, relevant to the subject you're talking about. So if I get up and start talking about public speaking thing or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you might sort of wonder what I think I'm playing at. But if I start talking about being in a big conference venue, clinging to the left side, then it has a relevance to the subject in hand. So start to think about all the different you can collect that you can use to illustrate what you're talking about when you go online. And the most important thing as well is to tell those stories instead of sharing a screen. The number of times I sit in a meeting and then somebody goes, so I'll just share my, and I shrink with horror because I know what's coming. Inevitably, there's going to be page after page after page of PowerPoint, bullet points. Send me the deck. I don't need to come and see you clicking through slides. The trouble is with slides like that is that as human beings, most of us will read before we listen. So if you put up a lot of words on the screen, I'm going to read them. And if you talk at the same time, I won't hear anything you say. And that's awful, because the reason I've come to hear your talk is because I want to hear what you have to say. And you've torn me away from that with these disconnecting slides. If you must use slides, think about Steve Jobs. One word, 110 point. That's massive. It filled the screen. At a glance, I've got the word, and then I'm free to focus on the speaker. Or pictures. Pictures that tell a story faster and more efficiently and more emotionally connecting than I can. The important thing to remember about slides is that they should support you, not replace you. If your slides are replacing you, you need to do some ruthless editing and try a talk without them. They're not always the best thing. Finally, I think that we need to look at how do we bring change when we talk. This opportunity to be visible, to share ideas, and so often talks don't bring anything new. And as an sitting there and we're giving our time to the meeting, we want to hear something we haven't heard before. We want to hear something new, something challenging, something that will have an impact on us. I mean, JFK said the only reason to give a speech is to change the world. Okay, maybe that's a bit big, but you can certainly be changing hearts and minds. You can change the way people think, the way they feel, the way they behave. And I think that has to be our mission. And online, we need to work out how best to do that. And first and foremost, the message is important. It needs to be a message for the moment, a message for the here and now. And it's important for you to be clear about that. And I think we hear a number of talks where it's not clear what the message is. So start off with a thought about, what is the purpose of this talk? Why am I doing it? What is my vision for this? What do I want the outcome to look like? How do I want people to be afterwards? And then go to the end of your speech and think about what you want people to think, say, and do, having heard you. And in that space there, what do you want them to think, say, and do that's different from what they do now and what they think and say now? There's the message. What is it? Pull out that message, craft it, work on it, hone it, and short. If your message rambles on for, I don't know, half a page of Word, it's too long. It's too complicated. It needs a bit more work. It needs a bit more refining and finessing. It's the most valuable time you can spend when you're putting a talk together is, what is my message? What do I want to share with my audience so that it's something valuable for them? So it's good to take the time to craft it. Then you go back to the beginning of the whole talk and start to assemble the information that supports that message, and only information that supports that message. Anything else is going to be too much. We tend to overload. You know, when you're passionate about something, you want to share everything you know, don't you? But it's too much. We don't have the attention spans. We can't stick with it for that long. So less is always more online. Reduce it, cut it down as much as you possibly can, so that take it all in. The other thing to remember is in terms of getting the message across, it's how you can make it really easy for your audience. You've got to get to the point quickly so that they have a reason to be with you. Yes, we have limited attention spans. In the room, it's probably up to 10 minutes. Online, I suspect it's around about 5 minutes. So 5 minutes and you might lose someone. So you need a really clear structure of what you're going to be talking about. You might want to choose a timeline. You might want to choose how something evolved into a great place. So it might be, you know, then, now, how it was then, how it is now, and how you got there. You might have something simple like prep, which is a point of view, a reason, an example, and a point of view. There are a number of structures you can take, but you want something clear and simple that allows you to assemble the piece. And then if you're talking for a long time, break it up into chunks, small pieces, like I've been talking about: confidence, connection, change. At the beginning of each chunk, give a little introduction. At the end, a couple of keywords that pull you onto the next section. If somebody does drift off, if their mind does wander, they can get back in really easily, because each small chunk is almost a self-contained speech of its own. And then finally, to just really create that standout against the back-to-back zooming, an anchor phrase that helps to keep your talking memorable. An anchor phrase is something short and rhythmic that you can drizzle through your speech and that people will remember, and it helps them to pull back that whole speech after the event. You might have things like, I've heard talks on housing that talk about home is where we start from. Hillary Clinton used women's rights are human rights. I've heard stories about abuse that say that are calling the audience to help, and say, you have a voice, you have a choice. So these phrases, when they're sprinkled through a speech, and especially when they're brought into the conclusion of it, start to really emphasize the point and give people a trigger to remember the speech going forward. So these are all very helpful things. And the final thing that I would say as we move into some Q&A is keep it interactive. Keep people interested in having something to do, that's rather than just listening. And I thank you massively for sitting and listening to me for the last half an hour. But normally you would have something where you've got sort of 70% of the time with people doing things and 30% of the time with them listening to somebody talking. And online it's harder again, but you might have breakout rooms that you can use. You might give people little tasks of reflection or introspection. You might give them a sort of homeworky thing to do while they're in the room with you. And then share these things back. So that way you start to create new ideas, but you also give some people something different to do. So it breaks it up a bit and makes things more interesting for everyone and more engaging. It might come up with something really new and valuable that you hadn't even expected. So that's what I wanted to talk about. If you can address those three areas, the energy, the connection that will allow your audience to really stay with you and enjoy every moment of it, and a message of value that is changing hearts and minds, then your talks online will pop so much more. They will stand out from that sea of sameness, and you're great.
That's brilliant, Lynn. Thank you so much for that. That was a really, gosh, value-packed talk for us, where you have absolutely embodied the message in the medium, yeah, just so much value there. It makes me embarrassed. I'm now kind of going to go away and remove my messy background somewhere and well,
no, because you know what works with your messy background is that it's distant enough that I can't see it. So even however much I lean in, I'm not going to be distracted, because I'm never going to see it. But I can see, what I can see is that there's books, there's intellectual, there's tasteful, and so that sends out a signal about who is Lucy.
Oh, well, I'm delighted then, Lynn. Thank you very much.
That is supporting you rather than distracting you. When people have things that are, you know, it's, my wall is really close to me, I can touch it. And if I've got things written on there or books on there, then people are going to be peering in and reading titles and all sorts. And coming back to this idea that we read before we listen, I might just as well not be here.
Yeah, No, that's absolutely brilliant. Lots of people are saying thank you, Lynn. Sarah says thank you, Lynn. That was amazing. Leslie says thank you, Lynn. Debbie, Jenny, awesome. And there's one question. I mean, I think you gave so much value that people haven't got many questions to. But we have got a question from Leslie, who says, "What, in your view, is the ideal duration of time for an online presentation? Is there an ideal? If you're I guess if you're choosing your own session rather than fitting in with someone else's."
Yeah, I think if you look at some talks, what do they run? 5 minutes, 12 minutes and 18 minutes. I think that I quite like the 10 to 12 minutes, because 7 or 8 minutes feels a little bit short, a little bit like you wanted to flesh things out a bit more, but there wasn't time. 18 minutes feels as if it could start to be getting very long unless it's very polished and really been worked on well. So I feel that 10 minutes gives you enough time to explore key issues. It sits very nicely within people's attention spans, a couple of 2 or 3 chunks, and you've got people with you the whole time. You can tell story, you can do everything in that space. And 10 minutes, if you use it well and you've prepared properly, is a lovely, it's a long amount of time. You can do a lot in that time. So I would always aim for the sort of 10 to 12. And remember, when you're preparing a speech, sort of lop 20% off it. So if somebody's given you a speaking slot of 40 minutes, don't prepare content for 40 minutes, prepare content for 30 to 32 minutes, and then you'll run in roundabout on time. And if you finish early, nobody's going to have a problem with that, trust me.
That's really useful to know that you actually need less rather than more in your preparation. Yeah, that's great.
Definitely, because when you're in front of an audience, the dynamic of the audience takes you somewhere different from you and the mirror, or you video recorder, and you start to do things differently. You're reacting to perhaps other people's faces that you can see, and you need time and that, and to put pauses in so that people can take things in, and all these little things that might be happening when you're talking. If you've given yourself that spare 8 minutes or 10 minutes, it's it will soon get swallowed up, probably.
Yes, no, that is so very true. There are lots of there's been lots of praise as well for Barack Obama, and also Mary, I think Mary Gregory said Michelle Obama is also a really inspirational speaker. Interesting, because she's got quite a different style to her husband. How would you characterize those two styles?
I think hers feels as if they both have a style that's quite personal, but his is clearly for people that he doesn't know, whereas she creates this sense of we're together here and we're talking about things that we relate to together. His idea of when he talks about things that we relate to, which obviously he's doing because he wants to be a part of the community he's talking to when he's trying to usually persuade them of something, it's done in a very different way, and I think everyone's aware it's a political forum, it's got an agenda. I think there's an awareness around it, where she creates a much greater sense of intimacy, something that's very real, something that's been part of her life. She's been there, she's had this experience, she's got the wounds, and she understands, and there's no judgment around her. I think so there's a lot more warmth, and it feels, I mean, all speeches in one sense are contrived. You've decided what you want to talk about and you've prepared them, but hers feels more less contrived, shall we say. It feels as if it's something that's when it matters between the two people having the conversation, even when it's a whole room. So I think her presence is very different. Her style is is much more conversational, and I don't like to say sort of feminine as opposed to masculine, but I heard her doing her first podcast, and he was her guest.
Oh, right.
Sometimes it almost felt like he was taking control, and while she never quite let him, it felt as if that's what was happening, and I thought that quite nicely described the difference between them.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. So Debbie Clement says sisterhood, and in relation to Michelle, I think. And Alison says thank you. Alison Graham says thank you. Great content, especially as I'm delivering an online presentation tomorrow. So there've been lots of people here, Lynn, watching and saying how much they've enjoyed this, and I know lots of people will also be watching on the recording as well. So are you okay to answer questions if they turn up in the comments?
Absolutely. And if anyone wants, you know, Alison, your speech going live tomorrow, if you want to talk about anything, you can call me later.
Message you on Facebook, message
me on Facebook, email me, anything. I mean, feel free to get in touch if you've got any queries, because all I want to see is great speaking going out there and you having a fabulous time delivering it. So
absolutely,
feel free.
And Lynn, if anybody wants to get in touch with you to have, do you offer something more that people can come to you and ask for? Do you do?
Yes. So my website is www.nowyourtalking.co.uk, and we can put that in the comments, can we?
Yes, I'm just doing that.
And on there are examples of things that I offer. So there's full workshops, there's small sessions on something sort of a burning issue. So one-to-one sessions that I call digital surgeries. At the moment, there's a few topics that I've put up there, but I'm happy to run those in any kind of space that's to people who are commissioning it. I do one-to-one coaching on anything whatsoever. And at the moment I'm involved, which is also something people might want to tap into. I'm involved in a coach-a-thon, which is going live on the 18th of November. And it's a full day's coaching. So I'm offering 6 coaching sessions.
Wow.
And it's being charged. The money's being raised for a cause. So it's £25 plus the Eventbrite fee, which is tiny, and for 45 minutes coaching. And that money then goes to women in 3 countries in Africa. It's Zimbabwe, Zambia, and one other I can't remember the name of, but to help women who are starting their own business. So it will give them the startup loan they need to set up and the training they need to get started. So it's really helping women to work their way out of poverty. So it's, for me, it's a fantastic cause.
Absolutely.
And, so if you wanted to tap into that, and again, you know, it's 45 minutes on any subject of public speaking that you want to work on, or if you've got a speech going live or something that you want some help with. So that's there as an option. We can post the link for that perhaps as well.
Yes, let's do that. That's wonderful. That's incredibly good value and a fantastic cause, as you say.
So really, anything you want to know about public speaking, ask, because I can always put something together that's right for you. Because that to me is what it's all about. It's not about pre-packed, here it is, wear it the way I've made it. It's about empowering you to be able to use all the different techniques in a way that makes your speeches make a difference. So that's my thing.
That's really superb, and I can absolutely vouch for Lynn's brilliance in coaching, because she's helped me write a TEDx talk, which sadly has been postponed and not given yet. But
I'm so excited about seeing that talk go live. It's the most beautiful talk.
Oh, well, thanks to you in large part. But hopefully next year it will finally get delivered. But no, that wasn't a plug for me. That was just, you know, to say that Lynn really is a fantastic speaking coach. So yeah, do get in touch with her if you think that you would like to work with her further. And on that note, Lynn, I will say thank you so much. This has been really, really valuable. I love being able to give a platform in the ABOO group to women authors and women experts. And you have absolutely done us proud. And I think so many people will gain from this. And I look forward to seeing lots more brilliant talks by everybody. Tag us if you're giving talks, and let us see the results of Lynn's words of wisdom. So thank you again, Lynn. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for being here, and we'll be talking to Obi James next week, or rather Obi James will be talking to us about becoming an anti-racist. So that's it for today. Thank you and see you all soon.
Bye, thanks.